Welcome to sportsbookreview.com. It's the finals of the first Grand Slam event down in Melbourne. It's the Australian Open tennis. Unbelievable start to the year. On the men's side, Djokovic does what he does. On the women's side, all the big guns, and there's probably 20 of them. And most of them have gone by the wayside. Muguruza versus Kennan. We're going to start off with the men. We're going to go with James. We're going to go with Snize. And we've shipped Wildcapper back in. I'm going to start with you, James. Just break me down this men's final. No rush. Just do as you want.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of, in a way, second best final we could have hoped for in terms of what the bookies might have been expecting and what fans might be looking for. I think, in a way, for me personally, this is a better final than if we had got a Rafa Djokovic final, because I think Thiem has done a lot more against Djokovic recently than Rafa has, at least away from the clay. So this is the kind of matchup where I think history would tell us that Djokovic is likely, even if he struggles, to come through this. He's not really struggled at the Australian Open. He's won 47 of his last 50 matches and 24 of his last 25 against the top 20 at this event. So he hasn't really struggled against anyone. This week, I think he's just dropped the one set early on against Struff, and since then he's kind of been free rolling. He did look under pressure against Federer in that first set, 4-1 down, love 40 for double break. You'd have to argue he was at least a little bit lucky to come out of that without even dropping a set. But he's basically looked untouchable overall this week. Anytime he's been put under pressure, he's come up with the right kind of response. The match against Schwartzman was excellent baselining, and Schwartzman didn't even manage a set. It was just far too clinical. And I think a lot of it comes down to Djokovic's serve. He's improved his serve a lot. Maybe his baseline game is not quite as good as it used to be, but it's certainly close. And that extra bit of pop on serve, especially the second serve, that makes all the difference. I mean, we saw that against Federer. After Federer failed to win that first set, he didn't generate a single break point in the next two sets against Djokovic. I mean, that is just excellent. He's never usually been quite so clinical on his own serve. A lot of historical things are suggesting that Djokovic is likely to win this, and he might even do it quite comfortably. But I think the problem with that is that this is quite a unique and new situation against Thiem. Thiem's a player who has always had the measure of the elite, but generally in the past it's been on the clay. But he's shown recently that actually he's clearly improved his game on the hard courts. I think he's had some coaching switch-ups, and effectively he's implemented a couple of new tactics that have made all the difference. And we saw this at the ATP finals, where he was able to beat Djokovic and Federer back-to-back. In fact, he's won 5 of the last 6 against the big three, and 4 of those were on hard courts. So it would be unfair, in my opinion, to suggest that history is the only guide here. There's clearly, for Djokovic that is, because there's clearly a history for Thiem that says he tends to break those trends. He's been one of the most profitable players to back against the elite. And he's actually won 3 of the last 4 meetings and 4 of the last 6 against Djokovic, albeit all on clay. So, all bar 1 on clay. So there's a mixture of both. And I think the way Thiem's played this week, he was excellent against Rafa. He was excellent again against Zverev. Little bit of nerves at points, and I think more nerves are probably to be expected in this final from Thiem. But at the same time, these things can always go both ways. So Djokovic has the weight of history behind him, and one of the things he's always been able to do historically is play the big points well. But if he doesn't, to start off with, maybe Thiem plays them too well, maybe he just gets a little bit nervous. Who knows what happens if that doesn't continue? Usually overperformance will mean revert. I'm not convinced it will with Novak, but I'm not convinced it won't. And of course, add to that the fact this is Thiem's first hardcourt final and slam final, and it's effectively the first time that he's had a really, really good pop at Djokovic away from clay. And so I would say that might mean that he's nervous, that he questions himself a bit much, but it could also mean that he swings freely. And we've seen when Thiem swings freely, he is probably the most lethal player. The power he can develop on both wings is just ridiculous. I don't really think maybe Wawrinka's comparable, but even then, Team probably has a higher peak now. So to me, he's exactly the kind of player that actually could beat Djokovic. I wouldn't expect it. I think the prices are probably about right on the money line. But at the same time, for me, I would not be wanting personally to go against Team right now. He's exactly the kind of guy who could break all these trends. I've personally gone for the over bet, and that was when we were being offered a line of 36.5. And effectively for me, I just think this line's too short. If you look at, I think it's 8 of the last 13 sets they've played against each other have actually gone over 12 games. And they met at the French Open last year, and I think the last 3 sets were all 7-5, and it was 5 sets. So this is the kind of situation where you end up with, well, actually, despite what the bookies are saying, history shows this has been very tight, and it's been pretty serve orientated. So yeah, for me, that was my play on this match. I would expect Djokovic to win, but I've got less faith in the stats and the history with this particular matchup than I might have had with someone else. And I'm also I'm really gunning for Team. Could really do with someone else winning one of these slams. Has to happen at some point.
Okay, I'll come to you. Well, we look at Team. He's actually swinging freely, and any tennis player who swings freely is going to be dangerous. Any player that sees off Nadal is going to be dangerous. Now, how does he go and beat Djokovic?
Well, it's not like he's never done it. He's gone up against him head-to-head in some huge high-leverage matches, most notably that what James brought up, that semifinal at Roland Garros last year, and acquitted himself very well. Djokovic, like, you look at that match and you look at those statistics specifically, and you think that was kind of a toss-up match that Team was able to win. But Djokovic really deployed some pretty strategic tactics to keep himself in that match. The weather was a little weird. He was really lengthening his points to try to get the rain delay to work in his favor at certain times. That was just a very strange match in general. And I thought Team, clearly on clay, I would favor Team as the better player. And on hard court, and specifically in a Grand Slam final, and specifically at this Australian Open, I think it is, correct and an appropriate line to have Djokovic as big of a favorite as he is. That compounds if you have a rainy day on Sunday and they have the roof closed and the conditions are a little faster. Team, absolutely, his form in this tournament, and specifically in his upset over Rafa Nadal, has benefited substantially from just sort of slower playing conditions. The ball is playing into his strength. The court speed being a little slower this season is playing into his strength. And if they happen to have an open roof, then I think we're talking, if it's a little humid but cooler, I think you're talking about Team being very live in this match. How does he go about doing it is an interesting question, just in terms of how this game, the match state plays out. Team has been extremely aggressive early in matches against the big three. He doesn't let the match come to him. He doesn't take his chances with, early set tie breaks, early set, coin flips. He likes to be very aggressive in these spots. I think we'll see a very different player come out of the gate in this one than what we saw versus Alexander Zverev, where he basically, it looked to me at least like, number one, the conditions weren't playing in his favor. It was a heck of a lot faster. And number two, he looked to me to be saving some of his juice. He was like, okay, let's see if I can get these wins in tie breaks without, exposing all of my best stuff, without pushing myself to the red line. And I think that may serve to have, give him his best chance to pull off this upset against Djokovic. My personal handicap on this one, I think Djokovic wins. I think it's a 3-1 match. But I think Team takes the first set here, and I think he can do it in style because, James brought up the point that Djokovic's serve has been reformed to a bit, and it's still not a serve I'm at all scared of, especially if I'm a solid returner like Dominic Thiem is. It's more that, Djokovic's second serve used to be an enormous liability, and now it's just not that much of a liability. But I think that you can, Djokovic is more likely to try to let this match come to him. He hasn't really sustained hardly any fatigue or damage in his run to this point in the tournament. So presumably the longer this match goes, the more it tips in his favor. And I think we see Dominic Thiem get a pretty comfortable first set victory. And then Djokovic slowly closes the gap and then pulls away in sets 3 and 4 here. I am in agreement with James. The over games is a solid look. I personally also very much like the Dominic Thiem handicap at plus 5.5 games. And again, this is largely under the auspice that we could see a first set 6-2 Thiem. And then that really puts you in very, very solid footing with a plus 5.5 games handicap. But, I do see value in Djokovic 3-1 at plus 250. I make that price plus 220. And I do think Djokovic gets his, keeps his superlative 7-0 at the Australian Open finals record. I think he keeps that intact and picks up his eighth Aussie title this Sunday.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with Snize because I left you to last on purpose. You put your head right on the block. You went out on a limb and we asked you for your futures and you went with Djokovic. I don't know how you sleep at night with that type of tipping. Now, do you hedge? Do you hedge?
I very rarely hedge, and I don't think you should hedge in this scenario. I think these two gentlemen have broken this down nearly perfectly. So for once, I'm not going to have that much to say. So brief respite from my rambling. But I think that Djokovic has looked, as they've said, really, really solid. This whole tournament has rarely been under threat. I think the Federer first set surge shook him a little bit. I don't think he expected Fed to come at him that hard. But once he got back into the game, those were never really a doubt that Djokovic was going to get out of the situation. Thiem has looked exceptional. But at the same time, I think he looked very nervous against Zverev, maybe letting the occasion get to him a bit. He faced 14 break points, was broken a ton. I'm not sure that if he showcases any nerves, that Djokovic will let him get away with that. But I do think he'll be extremely competitive. He is one of the two players, really, that have a great matchup against Djokovic. I would include Stan Wawrinka because he has the kind of aggressive hitting and the huge weapons that can really just rip through Djokovic defenses, and there aren't a lot of players who can do that. And I'll expect to see a team who's going to play up to his competition. He tends to play down or up to his competition. I think he played down to Zverev's level in the semi. I think we'll see a much different beast here. I think he'll really push Djokovic in the baseline rallies. He'll look to get on top and finish points early. And I think, as James said, a lot of close sets, a lot of tie breaks. So I'm seconding his bet there. I also gone with the over 36.5 at minus 120. And I wouldn't play this. I wouldn't stay away from playing this all the way up to 39.5. I think it's going to be Thiem taking at least a set, likely the first set, and then Djokovic slowly crawling back into the match and taking a 3-1, like Well said. So very solid handicaps all around.
Yeah, just to let people know that the selections that run along the bottom, they're a selection of what all the boys have done. So you've seen that Wow's actually gone over the games at 39, but he's getting minus 110, whereas James and Snize are over 36.5. And they're at minus 120. Obviously, the plus 5.5 games for Thiem at minus 105. And Djokovic to win 3-1. I'm going to come back to you again, Snize. I hope I don't regret it. But if Thiem wins the first set, do you go in on Djokovic again?
I would say that depends on the price, but likely not. I already have him at plus 125 to win the tournament. And if Thiem is playing spectacular tennis, well, who knows what happens? As James said, I mean, the trend can buck. So, I mean, I'm fairly confident in Djokovic, but I'm not going to be confident enough to be doubling down in the live spot. I'll just be rooting for Thiem continuing to give it a fight and getting that over in, and then hopefully cash a Djokovic ticket.
Okay, I just want one word from all of you. James, give me your set and the winner, please.
My set and winner?
Yes. So
what does that mean?
Well, Djokovic to win 3-1 or 3-2 or...
I mean, I think I would completely agree with Whale. I think 3-1 is probably most likely. My heart wants 3-2. Don't mind so much who gets it as long as it's an epic. But yeah, I mean, 3-2 or 3-1 Djokovic seem very likely scores to me.
Snize?
3-1 Djokovic.
Well?
I'm going to say, I bet 3. I bet 3 so I hope that's what we see. I guess I'll just add to kind of your sentiment there, though, about live play. Number one, if it's an open roof, if it's dry, and if it's not raining, and if it's cooler, I don't hate teams' chances to get this win, which may encourage me to get a little bit frisky with, I'm going to take team money live before the match and try to do some in-play trading, because again, I'm expecting a couple of things pretty clearly. Team more aggressive early than Djokovic letting team kind of expose some of his best tactics. What shots is he going to go to in key moments? I want to see that. I want to be prepared to absorb that later in the match. And then I would probably look for down a set plus down a break. You're going to see Djokovic likely at about plus money. And the second set here, if team does take the first, is not necessarily going to be one-sided. And I don't think any set here is going to be one-sided. I don't think you really ever see a set play out where someone takes a break relatively early and then just holds serve, runs away and hides. There's going to be a lot of, back and forth here. There are going to be some momentum swings in this match for sure. And so I do think this sets up pretty well for a match to come in with the live trading approach. And obviously what plays well into that approach is a team money line ticket from Jump Street, because again, we're expecting that's going to shorten up pretty good in this first set, especially if team comes out firing missiles.
Yeah, also, always take the underdog in a 2-horse race and hope that they meet in the middle at some stage, and you can absolutely free roll. Well, I'm going to stay with you because we're going to go to the women now. Obviously, a lot of our, I know that Snize is it. Well, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to go to you second, Snize, because I know you're holding a plus 600 ticket on Muguruza. I cannot believe that Muguruza has gone through this tournament in the style she has, Well.
I guess did you not watch Wimbledon 2 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was the same kind of thing. She came into that tournament, her form was so poor. And she had gotten like bageled in Mallorca leading into that Wimbledon tournament, and it was literally why is she even here? Just save up for next year because she doesn't have the goods. She didn't look great early. She picked up a little momentum, and she has kind of shown us now twice in the course of her career where she's come into slams like this with a mindset of, I'm going to go, this is my arc. I'm not necessarily going to be blowing players off the court in rounds 1 and 2. I have a draw that lends itself to playing myself into form a bit. And I think you can actually probably credit a ton of this to her, being reunited with her coach, Martinez, who he's got to be one of the better minds among the women's tennis coaches, and really has given us the best Muguruza to watch in this tournament. And it's been super exciting to be a part of it, because it's when she's out there and she's performing her best, it is so fun to watch. It is such a spectacular brand of tennis. You get the highs and lows of the unforced errors with the wow winners. That's not necessarily common in every women's tennis match. And so it's amazing to see it from Muguruza when she's got the goods. And, she's a big, in my opinion at least, she's a big match player. You look at kind of her as a mature adult and how she's done on the tour, as in the women's tour, more broadly. She's 7-1 in finals in her career on tour. Since turning 22 or 23. That to me tells me that she absolutely has the goods in when the moment gets the biggest, when she's playing players of the highest caliber. She brings her A game. And, this is not by any means going to be a pushover match for her. But, kind of like we were talking about for Team Djokovic about the weather and the conditions, I'm expecting almost certainly that we see a closed roof tonight, and that this court is a heck of a lot faster than what Kenin has had to, experience with through this fortnight to this point. And I think that absolutely the closed roof, the conditions favor Muguruza. I don't expect that this is a very clean and fun to watch match out of the gate. There's going to be a huge adjustment period while the two players kind of get used to the conditions, because they're going to be so different than what they had for days 1 through 10 and then what they had in their semifinals. So I think that lends itself to a first set over here. I do think that, the likelihood that this goes to, say, a tiebreak or even, 7-5, it definitely past, 6-3, in my opinion, is high. I got into over 9.5 games here in the first set at -103, and I think that's the most, optimal way to approach the match overall. But I do think Muguruza is able to outlast, to come up with the winner when needed, to raise her game to the level that gets her that first set in a very closely contested set. And at that point, she tends a tendency to really develop some momentum, run downhill, and run her opponent off the court, which I think lends itself to her winning 2-0 and her covering her game's handicap. So that's the way I've approached this one, expecting Muguruza to get her third ever Slam title, first ever on hard court. And her play in this fortnight has been pretty inspiring, and hopeful that she's a player all throughout this season, as opposed to just disappearing again like she has over the last couple times after winning a Slam.
Yeah, I mean, I had Muguruza when she was at plus 1,200 at Wimbledon. I told everyone that she was an absolute class outfit, and yet nothing that she'd done before actually backed up my statement other than her winning. Snize, plus 600 ticket. Do you hedge on this occasion, or can you give me a Kenin statement that she can win this?
We are not hedging here. We are in, if you followed along me over on Odds Market, you maybe have seen me on the US Open stating from day one that Bianca Andreescu was going to win the tournament. She faced Serena Williams in front of 20,000 crazy home fans. I bet on her money line, I bet on her games, and I bet on her 2-0 doubling down. We're going to double down here again. Garbiñe Muguruza wins this title in style. But let's talk a little bit about Sofia Kenin here, or Sonia Kenin, as she prefers to go by, as she is Russian-born. So I'll call her Sonia from now on. Because Will didn't really say a whole lot about her. He talked a lot about Garbiñe, but we got to get both sides. So Kenin, I mean, last season really showed what's to come from her. Surge from ranked number 56 to ranked number 14 in the world, took 3 titles, and she's just a fantastic player. She's great off both wings. She's a little bit in the middle of a counterpuncher and an aggressive hitter. She can both counterpunch and take her shots when the opportunity presents itself. She has an effective serve as well, which is also a boost. Have seen a lot of good serving from her this fortnight. But the most impressive part about her, for me, is her inner game, her mental strength, her mental fortitude. I don't think she'll be shook by this occasion being the final. She was up against the world number 1 and the home favorite Ashley Barty in the semifinals. And the Barty choked. She crumbled under the pressure. She couldn't handle it. She didn't play her best tennis, but Sonia Kenin was there to take advantage. And she said that she's looking forward to this final. So she'll definitely not just lay down and die. But it is indeed a first Slam final, which it won't be for Garbiñe. This is her 4th. And she is the only woman in tennis history to have defeated both Williams sisters in a Grand Slam final. Let me just put that out there. And both of those victories were in straight sets to boot. Absolute demolition. The thing with Garbiñe, when she gets hot, when she's in form, the former world number 1 is borderline unstoppable. And it will take a performance of a lifetime from Sonia to be able to defeat her here. She's been completely off the rails in 2019. It was her worst season yet. First out of the top 20 since 2014. But reunited with Hall of Fame player recently inducted Conchita Martinez, and probably might be going there as a coach as well. She's been on an absolute tear, 11-1 this season, and she's downed 3 top 10 players in straight sets en route to this final. And she's just got this aggressive, big hitting game that can just blow anyone off the court. And I think that happens to Kenin here. Kenin has shown in the past that she's vulnerable when she's facing the biggest hitters, the big elite hitters. And almost all of her losses last year came to these type of players, the likes of Kvitova, Keys, Pliskova, Yastremska, Andreescu. Those are the kind of losses. Those are the kind of players that Kenin loses to. She got demolished by Osaka and Collins early this season as well. So I think that just Garbiñe, she has the experience. She's looked dead set on this title. She has the redlining game, and the way she's playing it right now, I just don't think that Kenin has an answer. So we're doubling down. We're playing the 2-0 for plus 150.
Shame on both of you. James, 12 of the last 13 Grand Slam winners have been first-time winners. Or we've had different winners, I should say. Sonia Kenin, does she get the job done?
Yeah, I like how you've come to me last, because, of course, I personally have gone for a no bet on this match. So you've seen the arguments for Muguruza, and I think if I was going to take a play, this is the kind of situation where I probably would go with Muguruza. I think intuitively she probably is going to be too strong. But again, I have a problem that I feel like that history is priced in. And the problem that I have with this is that if you look at Kenin's prices, I mean, if this was a first round match, Kenin would be quite a strong favorite. And of course, that is a bit of an irrelevant point in the sense that it's not a first round match, it's a final. But it shows you that the bookies are aware of what's going on. And my issue with this is basically just that Kenin has not been a good player to go against when she's been in these kind of situations. Of course, you can make the argument she hasn't been in a slam final, and I think that's perfectly valid. But to me, these things can go both ways. The same way that Muguruza has played her best tennis on the big stage, I would say Kenin has played some of her very best tennis against the best players. And yes, she has sometimes been hit off the court by these guys, and I certainly would prefer her to play, if I was backing Kenin, I would prefer her to play someone else. But she's also beaten Williams, she's beaten Svitolina, she's beaten several players who have a very, very aggressive, powerful style. She took Osaka to 3 sets. Of course, she lost 6-1 in the end. But this is kind of my problem. That in that match, she was priced 2.6, and she lost in 3 sets. That makes me think the price wasn't far off. Yes, she lost badly in the 3rd set this time. Maybe another time she's able to find that range a bit better. So for me, this is one of those matches where it's a complete clash of styles, really. Kenin can do a lot of different things. I think she's probably really going to be doing one thing against Muguruza, which is redirecting pace and essentially really just trying to keep herself in these rallies and hope Muguruza can't paint all the lines. And she's just beaten Barty, who was effectively tournament favorite. And Barty wasn't her best, particularly on the key points. But that kind of win for a young, up-and-coming player who's shown a lot of talent. Again, it's not dissimilar to Thiem in the sense that it's a young player who's shown a lot of talent, and they are probably going to break through at some point. And this is as good a spot as any. Probably not the best opponent, but she's in excellent form. She has been this year. She has been recently. She's only really been on the ascent for like the past 2-3 years. I mean, Kenin's ranking has just been going down and down and down and down and down. So yeah, for me, this was a no bet. I think I would have gone with what the boys went with if I had to pick, but I would rather sit and watch and take notes for next time.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to give obviously both sides of the argument here. And you go with class, you go with Muguruza, but then you have to ask about the fitness worries that she's had. Will she run out of gas? Is this one game too much? Then you look at the omens, and the omen says Kenin. And then you look at the Russian mentality. And you have 12 of the last 13 different winners. So everything is saying that the underdog, who would be favourite if it was in round 1, is overpriced. Right, gentlemen, I know you're all with Muguruza. We're cheering on Muguruza, by the way. I was just trying to play devil's advocate because obviously Snize wants the 600 ticket, and he wants Djokovic, and he wants everything else. You're going with 2-0. Is that right?
I like to.
Yes,
also.
I'm going.
And I guess just in general, like I thought James's breakdown was extremely on point. Like the pricing is, especially the opener. Like they really were asking for, a pound of flesh if you wanted to back Muguruza to win. And it's come down. It's presenting some value, I think, especially as you get into the derivatives. Yeah, 2-0 for me. Muguruza -2.5 is one of my looks as well. But if I could only make one play on this one, I'm looking for over 9.5 games in the first set. I really have a tough time seeing either of these two players dominating out of the gate. I think this is going to be a back and forth first set, 2 breaks for each woman, and they decided in a tiebreaker. I like Muguruza in that spot because of her, her ability to make shots in those type of moments. For those reasons, I think 2-0 has value because again, I can see this if this goes the way of Kenin. Kenin wins a tight first set and also wins 2-0. Like I just have a tough time seeing this being a 3-set match either way, just based on sort of the style and mentality and how demanding those semifinals were, especially mentally.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. I just love it, and I cannot wait until the next Grand Slam already. Snize, go on, you put your hand up. You think you're in class or something?
No, I just wanted to add something there to Wales's point that if you think that Kenin is alive, though, if you think Kenin is going to win this, I would actually bet her first set money line over the full game money line, because an interesting stat here for the women's Australian Open finals is that 30 of the last 34 women that have won also won the first set. So it is extremely unlikely, especially as Muguruza is a several times Grand Slam champion, that she will relinquish would she win the first set. So likely the first set winner here has to be Kenin for her to have a chance to win this match, or I think Muguruza runs away with it.
Okay, and you hope that she runs away with it more like. Okay, James, Snize, well, Kappa, absolutely. And listen, let me make sure that we thank Spread as well, who's the fourth member of the team. Can't have them all on at once. So it's a squad game done absolutely brilliantly. We've got two people in the final. We've got Djokovic on the men's, courtesy of Snize. And we've got Muguruza, courtesy of Snize. So, Snize, you're having a good week, my lad. So listen, good luck. Have a great weekend, and I thank you all. Well, Snize, James, cheers, boys.
Cheers, Flash.
Hey, that's the Australian Open men's and women's final sorted out. Don't forget to join us on Liveline Super Bowl on Sunday with SBR Sports. What a game. 49ers versus the Chiefs. I'm going with the 49ers. Take care.